Hello and welcome to the Crafty Cauldron. I am Jo Beth and this is my workspace. Today I wanted to go over, I've been listening to a lot of other videos, and first of all I gotta apologize for my hands. I was coffee staining and I now have glue on top of that, so my fingers look really awful and you're going to be getting close-ups because of what I'm going to be doing. So anyway, sorry. I know it's kind of hard to look at sometimes. Okay, so what I wanted to do was give you a part 1 tutorial on making charms for your junk journals, and why it's important to pick the correct wire. All wire is not created equally, and you have to keep this in mind when you're working with it because of the nature of the wire. Okay, first of all, you're going to need some tools. These are called flush cutters. You see my last name is all over these. I used to teach wire wrapping at a local store. So anyway, I've been making jewelry for over 20 years. Got a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge. I'm not saying I know everything because I'm not an expert. However, I am a professional jewelry maker. I've been doing it for a long time, and at one point I was craft boothing and all kinds of stuff. But anyway, flush cutters. Flush cutters are called flush cutters because one side of them is flat. Right here you got a flat side. Okay, I hope you can see that. That's a good picture right there. So what this means is that when you cut a wire, let's just grab some of this stuff. You cut it so that the part that's going to fall off, and it's probably going to go flying, so close your eyes. Oh, it didn't. Okay, that's because of the nature of the wire. So now that I've cut it with the flush side, this is flat. There's no pokey side on it. Let me see if I can get you a close-up. It doesn't come to a point. It's flat. It's been sheared off. And that is because of the flush cutter. Now, flush cutters you can get at Michael's, you can get at Joann's. They're not that expensive for an economy pair, and they really are worth it. You can get really expensive ones, ergonomically correct ones. These with the little spring in the center like this are better than the ones that don't have a spring. This one doesn't work anymore, and it's just a piece of let me see if I can get you a close-up. It's just a piece of, it's like a bar. It slips out. This one is built in to the shank that goes into the handle. So it goes through a little hole right there, and it will hold that little hole is going to hold this wire, this tension wire, better. So that's going to last longer. So look for that when you're buying them. Okay, so the next thing you're going to need, and this isn't necessary, but it is very, very helpful, round nose pliers. These are, I believe, from Home Depot. Oh no, these are Beadsmith. Beadsmith is a good, inexpensive brand. So you want to get a pair of round nose pliers, okay? Then you have needle nose pliers, and these are economy from Home Depot. There's no knurling on the inside. There's none of that. I don't know if you guys know what knurling is. It looks like a crisscross pattern or a diamond pattern. That will scar your wire. If you scar your wire, it'll catch on stuff, even skin. So please, please look for pliers with no knurling. They want to be smooth on the inside, okay? Then we have a pair of these. These are, they're nylon jaws. Okay, these are great for straightening wire and for holding wire, especially if you're trying to make a coil. I wish my camera would focus. Let's see. Come on, camera. There we go. See, and it's replaceable. The jaws are replaceable. That's why there's a little screw in them. But these are bead-alon. These are economy. They're not really, really expensive. And you can purchase the jaw replacements from beadalon.com, or you can go to places like Fire Mountain Gems or Beadaholic or Joann's, probably Michael's, and stores like that are general craft stores. Okay, so you want to probably invest in a pair of these two. Now you can get mini sets that are really, really small. They're like little tiny pliers. Those are good too, especially if you have small hands like mine. I never invested in a set like that because I was always buying them one at a time. Okay, now we come to something that's really important, your wire. All wire like I said, is not created equally. Some of it is much more pliable and will bend easily, which may be what you want, and some of it is much harder and it won't bend as easily, and those are harder to work with. They come in different classifications. They come in dead soft if you've got like your brass, your nickel silver, which is German silver. Aluminum doesn't have this. Aluminum is aluminum, but if you've got like a base wire, a base metal wire, or sterling silver, or gold filled, or silver filled, or something like that, they all are classified this way. First, dead soft, which is exactly what it says. Dead soft. Very soft, very pliable. Second, half hard. Half hard is a little harder, and it's a little more durable, and it doesn't bend quite as easily. And then you've got hard, which is really hard, as the name says, as the classification says. Hard wire. Hard is easy. It's harder to bend, but it holds its shape better. Okay? Now, when you're bending wire, you have to remember that as you bend it, the more times you bend it, it gets brittle. You're working the wire, okay? When you work wire, it gets brittle. It doesn't matter what kind of wire it is. As it gets brittle, it's more prone to snap. So what you want to do is you want to try to work your wire or bend your wire into the shapes that you want it to be into as quickly and with as many steps as possible. I mean, as few steps as possible, because you don't want to work it until it's brittle and then you'll be coiling it and snapping it. You got to start over. Generally, wire isn't that expensive. Gold wire is expensive. Sterling silver wire, argentium, and fine silver, which is 99.9% silver. It doesn't have a lot of filler in it. Those are more expensive. Those you might not want to start with. But I do have alternatives lined up here and ready to talk about. The first thing I want to talk about is this gigantic, ginormous thing I got at Home Depot. It's really heavy. It's for arc welding. This generally is a steel wire with some kind of a coating on it. You can see it says 7525, so it's steel and copper. Now this is not super pliable, but it is meltable with an arc welder. You probably don't want to use one of those if you're going to make jewelry. It's just overkill. But you can use it. If you warm up any wire, it will be a little bit more pliable. More pliable wire gets extra pliable when you warm it up. Same thing if you've got some kind of a piece of jewelry made of wire. You don't want to try and bend it until you warm it up or until you wear it and it warms to your skin temperature, because it's more brittle when it's cooler. So you want to make sure that you make it warm so it bends more easily. For example, if I just rub this between my fingers, it's going to bend a little bit easier. Now this one doesn't bend so easily because it's not made for making jewelry, it's made for welding. But it is useful because you can, once you bend it, it's tough, it's strong, and it will hold its shape. If your hands are that strong and you can do that. Some people don't have really strong hands and they can't. Then we've got nickel silver. Nickel silver does contain nickel. Some people are allergic to nickel. And so you have to kind of be careful with that. If you're gonna make something that somebody's gonna wear, I don't suggest using this unless you make sure that people know in a listing that it is nickel silver, contains nickel. However, if you're going to be using it for charms for your journal, it's not going to be against people's skin for any prolonged amount of time, so it's relatively safe. If it's going to be, against someone's skin, say in a necklace or a bracelet or a ring, you might want to not use nickel silver. I use it sometimes, but I always make sure that I have that whenever I list it on Etsy in my store. I always make sure that it says nickel silver, and people generally are aware that they're allergic to nickel. Now, what it does to your skin is it can make you break out in a rash. I have a friend who also makes jewelry, and she made a very beautiful, delicate link necklace that she wore overnight right after she made it, and it was made out of nickel silver, and she woke up in the morning and she had a little dotty rash all the way around her neck, and that wasn't fun. Okay, so this is that half hard nickel silver wire. So this is a little bit less pliable. However, it is a small gauge. It's a tiny wire. So that's going to be, you kind of have to weigh the two. Is it a hard wire? how thick is the gauge. Now gauges run this way. This is a 26 gauge. This is relatively small. 32 gauge is going to be like the kind of wire you're going to find inside wired ribbon, and it is really not good for a lot of things because it's so thin. And if you work it even a little bit, if you bend it around even a little bit, it's going to snap because it's not durable enough. It's great for inside a ribbon because you're going to make the ribbon and you're going to leave the ribbon, right? But if you need to work it a few times to get it coiled around something, or make it into an eye on the end of a pin, eye pin, or something like that, the little thin 32 gauge wire is not going to work very well for you. So 26, there's 28 gauge, there's 30 gauge, there's 32 gauge. I'm going to just talk about 32 gauge for the moment and go from there. So 32, and then 30, 28, this is 26, and then it gets bigger as the numbers get smaller, the gauge does. So when you go to 24 gauge, it's a little bit bigger around in circumference. We're talking the wire, not what you're making, not the circles or things that you're making. We're just talking the wire. Then it goes from there. You've got 24 gauge, 22, 21, 20, 18, 16, 14. And as those numbers get smaller, the gauge gets bigger. And the harder the wire is to work with because it's thicker. I mean, it's just physics, right? So this one is a half hard, again, nickel silver. It's very durable. It's tarnish resistant, but not tarnish proof. Okay, keep that in mind. Then we have colored aluminum wire, coated copper wire. This is zebra wire. This is a really good craft wire. This is an excellent wire for making charms, for attaching your charms to lace or whatever you want to attach it to in a journal. It's really pliable. So again, you have to be careful about, how much you bend it, but because it's copper, it is durable and it's going to withstand a little bit more bending. These are red and purple. I love using colored wire, but the drawback to it is sometimes when you're using the colored wire and you are using metal pliers without the nylon jaws, that will scrape off the color. And I don't care how much it says permanently colored, eventually it's going to come off if you work it enough. Okay, so just keep that in mind too. So you want to try to have a design in mind and maybe draw it out on a piece of paper or watch a tutorial on YouTube or something like that and know what you're doing before you start bending the wire. Okay, so this is 20 gauge and 20 gauge. 20 gauge is a little bit thicker. I like using 20 gauge a lot, and see how that's crimped at the end, how that's bent because it was tucked in the inside. What you do with the nylon jaw pliers is you just go like this. And you don't need to clamp it too tight between the jaws, but you do need to slide it at different orientations around the wire to get your wire straight again. So see, we've got a straight wire now. So that works really, really well. Okay, so this wire is a little bit thicker than the nickel silver wire. I'll try to put them up here together so you can see. Purple, oh come on, light, stop it, camera. So the purple wire is the 20 gauge and the silver wire is the 26 gauge. So you can see the difference right there in that picture. So that's a good thing. Again, the red wire is also 20 gauge, and then they make it in different, oh, that's not the right one. They make it in different colors. You can get orange, you can get green, pink, bronze color. You can get all kinds of different colors. And zebra wire is a pretty reliable brand. Now, I got these at firemountaingems.com. Whether or not that is a good company is up to you. I'm not affiliated. I don't have an affiliation with any of these companies. I'm just presenting this information to you as a help to you guys. Okay, so there's those wires. Now we have, let's go with this one. This is a wire I bought locally. It is copper wire 20 gauge, and it's silver colored copper wire. This is going to behave exactly like that one, pretty much. Okay, except for the color on it, because the color on that one may or may not last. This, because it's a silver wire, the color on this is going to last, but it's not rust proof or tarnish proof or resistant. It's just as it is, copper wire. Copper does form a patina after a while, which is that greenish color like verdigris that you find on things. Copper will do that over time, and personally I really love that color on copper because it's natural and it's just really pretty, I think. So this one is a 20 gauge. Also, its color is copper colored. Oh, for heaven's sake. I'm so sorry about the washout. I'm trying, guys. Okay, so here we go. This is a copper wire. Let's see if it'll do this. Okay, so copper wire. Next thing we have is this. This is, I got this at Ace Hardware, which is just your local hardware store here. It is galvanized. Let's see if I can get it to focus. Galvanized steel wire. Okay. It is, I believe this is, yes, 20 gauge. It comes in a huge package. It's 175 feet, which is a bargain. If you want to work with steel wire, galvanized means that it will resist rusting. It is not stainless steel, so you don't have that advantage of the stainless steel wire being nearly rust proof. Okay, but this is really nice and pliable for steel wire because of that galvanizing quality, and I believe it may have a copper core, but it doesn't tell you that. So for all intents and purposes, this is a steel silver colored wire that you can use. Okay, so there's that one. Now this one is a copper wire. This is a 24 gauge. It's a 4-pound package. Oh, I'm sorry, a 4-pound, I believe that's the weight, but it's 24 gauge and it says 100 feet. This one's really cool because it comes in a little spool thingy and you can just pull it out and it just unwinds, which is really neat. This one I also got it at Home Depot. The 24 gauge is relatively thin, but because it's copper and it's more pliable, it can be bent pretty well, pretty easily, and remain relatively durable. This one would be a good thing to use. So this is probably, I love the way that copper looks on things, and in a junk journal it really doesn't matter what color you use because it is a junk journal. Do not lose sight of that. Here's something that I made with some copper wire, and this was copper jewelry wire, and what this is I just made each link individually, and you can see that it was not that difficult to get each coil, each eye built at the end of those beads to look relatively the same shape. And the way that you do that is, I don't know if you noticed it or not, but these pliers have a little pen mark on them. Now that pen mark tells me that's where I need to put something that I'm making every time to get the same size eye in the wire. Okay, that's a little trick I learned. Just do it with a Sharpie. It'll wear off. It's not going to last forever. It actually wears off relatively quickly, so keep that in mind as well. Okay, so now we have stainless steel wire. This is really tough. Of course, the thicker the wire, and these are from Fire Mountain Gems as well, the thicker the wire, the smaller the gauge, okay, the tougher it's going to be to work with because it's steel and it's surgical stainless steel. I'm sorry, stainless steel. It's a little tougher, okay, but it's a great thing to work with because it's stainless steel, and it's going to last pretty much forever unless it gets, terribly abused or something. So that's a really good alternative. You need to have a really good pair of wire cutters, the flush cutters, to do this, because to cut the steel wire now, because the steel wire being so hard, it will notch your flush cutters. It's possible to notch your flush cutters along that flush edge. This one doesn't have any notches, and these can be sharpened. If you have a sharpening stone, you can sharpen them also. Another thing that, oh, this one does have a notch on the very, very tip. I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's what I did using steel wire. So some of these I don't use with steel wire. Some of them, if they're already bent like that, I will, because they've pretty much been through it, right? But yeah, you can sharpen these if you have a sharpening stone, or if you have a Dremel with a sharpening tool at the end or something like that. Okay, this is red brass, and this is a 16 gauge red brass wire. Red brass looks like gold. It is so less expensive though. This is, because it's a 16 gauge, it's really thick. It's a really thick, heavy gauge wire, a little bit more difficult to work with. I don't remember where I got this one, but it was off of Etsy. I do have other gauges in my workroom, and I didn't bring them out because I'm just showing you examples right now. They also make wire in half round and square. When you're talking like a craft or jewelry website, you can get half round, which is great for wrapping around because it's got a flat side to it, or you can get square wire, which is extremely easy to work with as long as you keep, I mean, for me personally, I keep the square in line so it doesn't show, you know, a corner on the outside. It just shows flat. So that's a really good alternative if you want to get really fancy. The shapes like that, the round wire tends to be a little less expensive than the half round or the square wire. And you can also get twisted wire, which is, it's like a designer wire. You don't have to twist it yourself. It just comes to you that way. Excellent for making really fancy jewelry, but a little more expensive as well. Now this is sterling silver wire. I love working with sterling silver because it is very pliable. It's also very durable, although it does tarnish, and as good sterling silver will. This is 0.925 sterling silver wire, and I purchased all of my sterling silver wire more than a year ago. I don't know what the prices on them right now are, but they usually fall within market prices per ounce. So that is something to look out for. If silver falls, go to your website wherever you want to go to get silver wire and check out their prices because they do fluctuate. So this one is a 16 gauge sterling silver, and I love the way that sterling silver is nice and bright silver. I'm going to try to get this in here. There we go. It's super, super pretty. Okay, and the ring that I'm wearing is also sterling silver, although it's kind of aged and notched and stuff, but it's the same metal. It's the same metal. And this, I wash my hands like 50 times a day now, of course, but you can see that this still has a brightness to it. That's going to last on the wire as well. Now, the tarnish you can take off with like jewelry cleaner, the liquid stuff that you dip it in, as long as there aren't any stones on it that will discolor in the liquid cleaner, because the liquid cleaner is a harsh chemical, and it is a chance that whatever stone you use may be discolored, or it might get a matte finish instead of a polished finish when you're done cleaning. So I suggest you using a polishing cloth if there's a stone you want to wrap with this. And this is just a sidebar. This doesn't have anything to do with really with junk journal, the junk journal charms that I'm talking about. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this up into parts. I think I've been recording for, I don't see my timer. I don't know how long I've been recording because I'm a dork and I didn't look. Sorry about that. So if you have any questions, please either contact me through my Etsy store or through Instagram, or leave a comment below. Now, the chances of me getting a message from Instagram or Etsy are far better than me getting a message through YouTube comments, because sometimes I don't see them. In fact, there was one that I answered yesterday. It's been there for like 4 days and I didn't even see it. I don't know where it was. It was just all of a sudden there. So keep that in mind. I am willing to answer any questions that you have, and if I can't answer them, I will try to find you the answer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this off here, and the next video that I do in this series, part 2, will be getting into the actual charm making. But that'll give you time. It'll be a few days probably. It'll give you time to be able to collect wire. You can use, you know, all kinds of different wire. Some people salvage wire from other pieces of jewelry, or from, oh gosh, like kitchen appliances, stuff like that. It's just, keep your eyes open for it. You never know what you'll find. Okay, so thank you all for watching, and thank you to all of my new subscribers. You guys are awesome. We're going to get to this whole junk journal charm building thing really, really soon, because I love doing this. So peace, love. And remember, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. So make your day happy, crafty, and colorful one. Don't forget to wash your hands, and don't touch your face when you're out in public. Okay? Thanks, guys. I don't want to see anybody get sick. Okay? I really, really don't. You guys are important to me. Okay, so I will talk to you later. Stay safe, stay well, and be good to each other. Bye-bye.